Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmitty, Swanee and Clarky visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. All right, how are we?
Again, good still, something?
Still good, stumming.
Not too bad.
Fab.
Yes.
Swanee had to think about that. It's only been an hour and a half since she said she was good.
Still good? Yes, I think I'm still good.
Is it because you're still
Bad
recovering
concept.
from the trauma of hanging out washing mid-break?
I'll be honest with you. One of the things I had to hang up then was so heavy and I was struggling with it so much. I was battling, when my arms are aching. I'm like, oh my God, this is, and I couldn't even it up.
It wasn't a dead body.
It's a really heavy sort of like quilt cover that we don't even put a quilt into. We don't even put the quilt into. It's that heavy. I just use it like as a blanket kind of thing. And I was literally like, it was a bit of a struggle. So, and I had it a bit, I don't know, it wasn't mangled and I was trying to get it over. Anyway, it's exciting stuff, isn't it?
It is indeed. That's all right. I did 3 loads of washing today. I know how you feel. Yep. All right. Well, we don't have a lot in the last 10 minutes to discuss, so let's just introduce ourselves. I'm Schmitty.
I'm Swanee.
And I'm Clarky. And together we are Trial by Wine.
Swanee's not even in the program anymore.
Right. Go on,
I
give
just saw
it
a
your
note that I
best.
couldn't understand. Fucking hell. I was like,
Use the force.
Oh my God. I just totally
say
left the
Trial by
room, like
Wine.
massively. I just read something and I was like, oh my God, I was about an access code to something that I was supposed to have done. And I just was like panicked. But anyway.
And what are we drinking?
Gosh.
Wow.
Well, I'm polishing off the last bit of my Star Lane from last episode, and then Stu's just cracked open. Do tell.
Last year's vintage, 2023, the Zen
Edition.
This is the Shiraz we make.
That's my
okay.
artwork on the.
Yeah.
You like it?
It's very Zen.
And Swanee, what are you drinking?
I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to episode order.
Oh, okay. Getting serious.
Oh,
a bit of-
risque.
Schweppervescence.
As I live and breathe.
Oh, I like that. It's a bottle. Well done. Schmitty, have you progressed to the grunters?
No, I'm still on the Malibu, but as I have to
I
work
thought you
tomorrow,
might have had a little bit of a mango chut. No?
I don't have any at the moment, no. I'm a bit slack on the whole booze front, but I have to work tomorrow and I have to be up at the crack of dawn again. So I've got a little half bottle of
Are you working at the
SodaStream
Grand Prix or at the flower place?
flower show tomorrow.
Flower show.
Oh, yeah. I mean, seriously, can't keep up with my amazing life. Yeah.
One of my children is coming to Melbourne for a week for school.
Oh, cool.
Yes, after Easter. He's there. It sounds amazing. He's staying in South Bank and going to all these wonderful shows. It's an arts tour.
Oh,
Sounds amazing. I was like, I'd like to go.
Maybe you should, but you just don't do any of the arts tour and we just get boozed.
A booze tour.
Yeah. Sounds like a
Isn't
great
that
idea.
your mum down there?
Yeah.
No, she's back at home.
No, she's in the WA. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
That woman is.
No, she couldn't make it. Are you sure? Be like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but from the parents' point of view.
Why is that woman dancing to Crazy in Love by Beyonce like that?
I mean,
that's
that's
your mum.
10:30 in the morning.
No, it's not. Oh, God. Has anyone got a story for us?
I do.
Clarky does. Right. Good.
Yes,
Otherwise,
yes.
this would be a real short episode.
Right. I'm going to start with my sources because I need to get them out of the way. First one
Good
is
idea.
forum.beyondbeautiful.com, globalvoices.com,
I thought you were gonna-
thepinknews.com,
Mm.
impunitywatch.com, romeo.cz,
Oh,
which I think is like Czechoslovakia.
Czechoslovakia, yeah, I think
Czech
so.
Republic.
or is it?
Probably
Or it
Czechoslovakia.
is. Yeah. I was gonna-
Technically, it's either the Czech Republic now or Czechia. It's no longer called Czechoslovakia.
Yeah, Czechia is the new one, but yes. So I was trying to say
Is it? It's what they
Czechoslovakia,
call
then I realised that
themselves?
wasn't a thing.
I don't know, it's just what
Yeah,
said on Wikipedia.
You don't call it Czech
I
Republic?
think it's Czechia.
It's the Czech Republic or
changed.
Czechia. It's not, or
I think
Czechia,
it's-
but it's certainly Czechia.
Czechia. I think it's Czechia.
It's not
Yeah.
Czechoslovakia, that's for sure.
But like Turkey is Turkey. dailymail.co.uk, aljazeera.com, cnn.com, bbc.com, they all provided the big headline overview, but I really struggled with finding detail. And I finally did find detail later, and I'll reveal that source later because if I do it now, it'll give it away.
It's a spoiler.
Watch this space. Yes, but to continue the theme of the last however many weeks, months, whatever. Yeah, that's definitely a clue. We're continuing the theme of going to places that we visited, and today I'd like to take you on a journey across the Pacific Ocean to Santiago in Chile, or Chile. Some people say
Chile. Yeah.
Santiago is a city of approximately 7 million people, and about 40% of those that's about 40% of Chile's population. Yeah, actually, no. And you'll find out a little bit about that shortly.
Look, every time I'm going to try and get that bit into it. Gay? No.
Yeah.
Gay? No, Carla, no.
Heavily closeted, I'm going to suggest.
So about 40% of Chile's population live in Santiago is what I was trying to say. So it's built on the fast-flowing Mapocho River and flanked by the Andes Mountains. And on a clear day, the views are breathtaking. The city of Santiago, the snow-capped mountains.
Rise and look around you.
That exactly. The problem is there's not many clear days.
Correct.
But when it is clear, spectacular.
It's like it's encircled by
Santiago. Is it high?
It's the Andes.
Not really.
So yes,
so it's already.
Yeah, but
surely from a sea level perspective, it would be pretty high elevation.
No, so Santiago is about an hour away from the sea. The Andes are tall, right? The Andes are high, but Santiago itself isn't that high. So it's not like it's built on the top of the Andes. It's built at the foot of the Andes, if that makes sense. So,
and they go up quite dramatically. Okay.
Today's crime isn't a happy one. And so before we get stuck into it, rather than just going...
Which ones are? Happy crime.
Well, introduction, to be fair. That sounds like
what I'm saying is...
It's not so bad.
No, this one's not good. But I thought rather than go straight into the crime, I'll take you on a little bit of a journey. So before we get stuck into the crime, let's kick off with a little lighthearted talk about wine, which is clearly a subject dear to our heart. So Santiago has several nearby wine valleys to the north and south. And I'd like to tell you about three of them. First one is Casablanca Valley, which is a relatively new wine region located about 40 miles west of Santiago. It has coastal breezes and a relatively cool climate.
You had to come into this.
And it lends itself to the production of white grapes, particularly Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay, or as we like to say, Savvy B and Cardi. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. So, famous wineries located in the Casablanca Valley include Loma Larga, Kingston Vineyards, and William Cole Vineyards. The second valley is San Antonio Valley, just south of the Casablanca Valley and even closer to the ocean. Like Casablanca, San Antonio produces Savvy B and Cardi, along with high-quality Pinot Noir and Syrah. Matetic Vineyards is one of the most... Well, it's the French version of, or the Italian version of.
That's French, but it's the same grape. I don't know why, but the New World decided to call it Shiraz, and I don't know why. And they're going. I don't know if you've noticed.
Jazzy Shiraz.
No, they're going back to it now, though. I've noticed that Australian producers are starting to call it Syrah. Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah,
anyway,
gotcha. I've seen a lot of Syrah lately. Right. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
So Matetic Vineyards is one of the most famous vineyards who first planted vines in 1999 and in doing so became the pioneers of Chile's cool climate Syrah. And the third one, because we had options of visiting all of these three valleys, the third one is the one we went to, which is the Maipo Valley. It's the closest wine region to Santiago, so close that Santiago now extends into the valley. So a little bit like Yarra Valley in Melbourne, or probably...
Yeah, okay, somewhere else.
I was going to say Clare Valley, but not. What's the one starting with M in South Australia? McLaren Vale. So the city blends into it. There are over 7,000 hectares of vineyards in the Maipo Valley. Popular varietals include Cab Sav and Camaniere, as well as a little bit of Savvy B. we had the pleasure of doing a wine tour through the Maipo Valley.
Yes.
And what a hoot it was. We had an early morning start on a bus full of people that we didn't know, and it ended with a drunken ride back to Santiago with a whole lot of shenanigans. And if you ever get the chance, we highly recommend it. There were 2 buses on our tour, and people off the second bus were trying to get a ride home on our bus because we were all having such a good time.
Oh, it's the party bus.
Of course it was.
And probably because Clarky and I were the only ones that bought wine to take home, we got back to our hotel. We had no wine left.
Literally,
we drank it all on the bus.
Someone was trying to break into the boot of the bus whilst it's driving to get their bottle opener so we could decork a bottle.
Yeah.
That was you, wasn't it?
Anyway, it was our wine.
When you say someone.
Oh, yeah. My kids say that, but it was them.
They did tell me where the corkscrew was. It's in the front zip to the right-hand side of the backpack, and I'm over the back seat trying to... Yeah.
Anyway, but it was a fun time. So are you ready for the crime?
I was going to say, and then what happened on your bus?
Well,
no one remembers.
Yeah.
That was the crime.
That was the crime.
Everyone was converted to homosexuality.
Yeah, it was just debaucherous.
But nobody bought wine. It was all our wine they drank.
Ooh, was it now?
That's what you're worried about. That's what makes me laugh. It happens.
No, but we drank everyone got free wines. Anyway, let it go. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Today's story is a hate crime. And I'm not sure that we've specifically done a hate crime on the podcast yet, although I'm sure we've done a lot of crimes involving hate.
I think the chicken house one was pretty much a hate crime. Do you remember the one about the two homosexual blokes who were called...
Oh, yes, I do.
What? I love the way neither of you remember anything. But yeah,
I don't remember any of them.
Correct. Literally do not. They lived upstairs. Above the chicken house.
They lived on a place called Dead Horse Road or something, and they built a mansion,
you made joke references
a
about us.
mansion, and they had a chicken house, and it was, disgusting.
Oh, I think I remember the pictures, right. But
and they had
a
pink room at the top, not the stink room, and that was where they had all the sex and all the fun times and the drugs, and then some nasty kids came along and murdered them. Yeah.
Oh yes, I do remember that one now.
Yeah, that was they called, and the media and everyone referred to them as Satanists, but really it was an anti-homosexual thing.
So as this is the first time we've openly discussed hate crime, as opposed to just talking about crimes that involve hate, a hate crime is defined as a crime typically involving violence and motivated by prejudice on the basis of things like ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, and even disability. And I thought I'd share with you some statistics on hate crimes in Australia, because this isn't a hate crime from Australia. We're obviously Australian. Hate crimes exist everywhere. I'll give you some stats. So hate crime is rarely prosecuted in Australia. The laws are state-based and were generally brought in and around the mid-90s. Since then, only 21 people have ever been convicted of state-based hate crime laws, including 3 in Queensland and none in New South Wales and South Australia.
Oh my God!
So keep that figure in mind, because in 2022, the Executive Council of Australian Jury, that's not a mispronunciation, I'm not trying to say jury, and not judge and jury, but involving Jewish people, said that there are only 3 communities, Jewish, Muslim and Asian, who have a reporting and documentation system which produces reports on hate incidents in their community. So when we talk about hate crimes being around ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation and disability, there's only 3 communities, Jewish, Muslim and Asian, who have a reporting structure around that, right? Which means that everyone else doesn't have a reporting structure. Okay. 21 people have been convicted.
Can I ask a question? So if there was a hate crime and let's say someone was actually murdered or another, it was clear that there was another crime and they went to court because they had, like, on a murder charge, does that then circumnavigate the fact that's not a hate crime? So there may have been ones that have been so clear that that's what had happened that they were then charged and it wasn't, whilst it was a hate crime, they weren't charged at a hate crime, it was charged for murder. Do you know what I mean?
So they're not convicted of a hate crime. But also, so if you think about it, if you raped someone then murdered them, you would get charged with murder and rape, right?
Okay.
People aren't getting charged with rape and hate crime or murder and hate crime. What it is that it's generally doesn't even bubble to the surface. And I'll give you an example of it shortly. But so just remembering that 21 people, so the Executive Council of Australian Jury also state that in Australia, between the 17th of September 2014 and the 30th of September 2021, so roughly a 7-year period, there were 3,522 reported hate incidents in that period. Laws came in mid-90s. Nearly 30 years later, let's say 25 years later, there's 21 convictions, and within a 7-year period within that, there were 3,522 reports from the 3 areas of that spectrum that actually have a reporting structure. That 3,522 amounts to an average of 9 incidents a week. They were broken down as follows: 2,142 anti-Jewish, 839 anti-Muslim, and 541 anti-Asian, and specifically Chinese. So they're only the statistics based on ethnicity or religion. So it's fair to say the problem is much larger. However, only 21 people have ever been convicted. And Swanee, to your question, here's an example of what can happen when dealing with hate crimes. So in 2019, Imam Wadood Janud was just wrapping up a vigil for the victims of the Christchurch shootings in New Zealand. Remember those ones?
Yep. Yep.
It was a day after the massacre, and a ute smashed into the gate of his mosque in South Brisbane. The driver shouted profanity and abuse, and then he rammed his ute twice at the gate. The driver then reversed his ute and drove away, but the torrent of abuse didn't stop. Even while he was driving off, he was shouting and cursing, "Go back to your country, you guys don't belong here." The victims, including Imam Jamud, believed this was a hate crime. But the next day, at a joint press conference with the Islamic community, the police said otherwise. And their statement was, sadly, overnight, police picked up a gentleman for drug driving. He did call out some words at the people who were inside the mosque, said Queensland Police Commissioner Ian Stewart. Please do not think that this was born out of hatred, he said. We can never legislate against stupidity. And that is the truth of it. That's the police's words, right?
That's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Queensland Police instead charged the man with willful damage, driving a motor vehicle while suspended, and public nuisance under the criminal code. That's Queensland where they've had prosecutions. New South Wales hasn't had a single one in 26 years at the point of that story. And by now,
they got it all sorted there? Isn't that
what
wonderful?
a loving community they are.
No problems. I know. They never have any problems there. That's great. I'm pleased to hear that.
Yes. So there's some context into the way that I guess hate crimes work. People don't report them. When they do report them, they probably don't get treated seriously, all that sort of stuff.
Also, Queensland, home of apartheid, just saying.
Home of a lot of things.
Like the home of hate crime, right? Anyway, apartheid originated from Queensland.
What?
It was yes. Apartheid was in place in Queensland well before it went to South Africa, and it allowed the government.
What they think? I like what you're doing there.
To remove Aboriginal people to reserves and missions. It's absolutely true. I'm not making that up. Anyway, so yes, Queensland has a history.
Well, so does Australia.
I was going to say, I don't think
Can you believe that no one in New South Wales has been convicted of a hate crime?
Yeah, not that no one in New South Wales has perpetrated a hate crime.
Committed one.
But I can believe they haven't been, well, they've definitely committed them.
Cronulla
riot bullshit. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right? That was all hate
just
crime.
Not been,
So let's jump in Schmitty's famous timey-wimey machine and head back to 2012 Santiago. And this is the story of Daniel Zamudio, a 24-year-old Chilean man who was the second of 4 brothers, a clothing store salesman who hoped to study theatre. His parents had separated and he lived with his mother and grandmother. He's a theatrical Schmitty.
Pink flag. It's fine. I do theatre. I get it, right? But yeah.
Right.
We are his people. It's all good.
After his best friend committed suicide, Daniel went into depression and dropped out of school.
Yeah.
On the 2nd of March 2012, Daniel went drinking and having fun with friends in a club in downtown Santiago. At some point during the night, he decided to leave the club. He was drunk after enjoying the evening, and it was time to go home. He left the club and, clearly drunk, had a lie down on a bench in a nearby park, San Borja Park, where he fell asleep. This is where 4 men who had been drinking in the park found him.
Jesus, here we go.
The 4 men were Patricio Ahumada, Alejandro Angelo Tapia, Raul Lopez Fuentes, and Fabian Mora Mora. They approached Daniel, woke him, and asked him if he was gay, to which he replied yes.
Should have said, no, I just like a bit of jazz hands.
I'm a theatrical.
Mark Graham.
Yes. From here, things escalated quickly.
Oh, God.
They started punching and beating him and dragged him to a more secluded part of the park where they continued the beatings. And I'll put on a little too much detail warning here, so just brace yourselves. Okay. After the beatings and needing a break, they decided they needed to have more drinks. But they were running low on alcohol, so they sent Rahul off to the store to get more booze. Rahul returned to see the 3 men relentlessly kicking Daniel. They kicked his body, his arms, his legs, and his head. Once they stopped kicking him, Alejandro broke a bottle over Daniel's head. Then Patricio used the bottle to carve 3 swastikas into Daniel's body.
Was Daniel still alive at this point, do you think?
100%.
Oh, my God.
He was absolutely still alive at this point. Alejandro then grabbed a large stone and smashed it down onto Daniel's head twice. When he was finished, Fabian picked up the stone and threw it over and over into Daniel's legs, completely smashing the bones in his thighs and shins. All of this happened approximately 50 metres from a police booth that guards a local chapel and only metres from a night watchman who patrolled the local park. However, no one saw or heard anything. At around 2:30 a.m., after putting out their cigarettes on Daniel's body and torturing him for almost 6 hours while they drank rum, Schmitty, pirate juice, they all went their separate ways.
Don't blame the rum. It's not the rum's fault.
It's a hate crime, not a rum crime.
That's right.
Daniel was left lying unconscious in the park.
Oh, my God, he's still alive.
100%, with part of his ear cut off.
Oh, my God.
He had crushed legs, broken arms, severe head injuries, and swastikas carved onto his body. And this reminds me of a story we did a while back. Ants were crawling in and out of his open wounds. He was discovered by police at approximately 4 a.m. and taken to hospital emergency public assistance in Santiago, where he was diagnosed with traumatic brain injury, a broken leg, and cuts on his stomach that resembled swastikas. He had no ID or wallet on him and was initially an unknown victim. Before going out that night, Daniel had told his parents he'd be staying at a friend's house. So his mother, Jacqueline, wasn't initially worried that he hadn't come home. However, when he hadn't returned home by Sunday, she became concerned. She filed a missing persons report with the police, and based on her description, police determined it was likely that Daniel was the man in hospital. When they told his mother, Jacqueline was frantic and couldn't work out how this could have happened. She and others had told him many times not to go out on his own, as people like him were easy targets for neo-Nazis. She thought that there must be a mistake, but went to the hospital to check if it was Daniel. She was warned about the state he was in, and a nurse suggested she may not want to see him like that. However, she said she didn't care, she just wanted to sit with her son. When she entered the room, she initially didn't recognise him, as his face was so swollen. However, she quickly determined that it was in fact Daniel. The surgeons had worked tirelessly to save his life. Daniel had received surgery to remove a blood clot on his brain. He had metal plates throughout his arms, and also metal plates knitting his bones together. Whilst he needed much surgery, he was given a break so that the swelling could go down, and to assist with his recovery, he was placed in an induced coma. Daniel's father, siblings, and extended family all came to the hospital to support him. So he was well loved by his family. He wasn't, ostracised in any way, right? And they wanted to ensure that he was never left alone, not even for a minute. In the meantime, Daniel's attack was receiving national and international media coverage. This highlighted Chile's lack of laws preventing hate crimes. Plenty of politicians and celebrities spoke out against the attack. And just to show, I guess, how far it went, Ricky Martin posted on his Twitter, "No more hate, no more discrimination. I hope that justice is done now. Lots of light to Daniel and his whole family."
And then she bangs. Oh, baby.
Living La Vida Loca.
Just hashtag she bangs. Sorry.
All of this media attention placed a lot of pressure on the president to act on the hate crime laws that had been introduced to Parliament 7 years prior, aiming to prohibit this exact type of discrimination based on race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, gender, appearance, or disability. However, adoption of the law faced opposition from, my friends, several churches who argued that we can't pass laws like that because it could lead to the legalisation of same-sex marriage. And as such, it stagnated and was never passed. A group representing gay rights in Chile had launched a publicity campaign to appeal for witnesses. They stated it wasn't a one-off event. Violence by neo-Nazi groups keeps happening. Rolando Jimenez from Movil, the gay rights group, told BBC prosecutors say they do not have firm evidence of neo-Nazi involvement, but it's possibly, given the victim's profile, previous incidents, and the suspected swastika marks, that's exactly what's happened. He expressed his deepest feelings of love and solidarity to Daniel and his family and friends. He said his death will not go unpunished and will strengthen the overall obligation of the government to fight against arbitrary discrimination, and our country will become more tolerant. Daniel's attackers quickly became the most wanted people in Santiago for almost a week after the attack. The police, and we've spoken about bad policing. This is an example of exemplary policing. The police were relentless. So it was all over the media. Everyone was talking about it, and the police didn't stop. And through all of that, Rahul, who was the one who went to get the extra booze, his conscience weighed very, very heavily on him. And he came forth and confessed everything on the 9th of March, so a week after the attack. And he spoke about the names of his attackers. So he said that it was, in fact, Patricio, Alejandro, himself and Fabian who were the ones who attacked Daniel. He went into detail of what had happened. And through his testimony, the police were able to build a very good case against the 4 men. Our mate Patricio, though, who was one of the accused, had previously been released early from prison where he was serving time for robbery and intimidation. He was a self-professed neo-Nazi who hated foreigners and gay people. He was well known in the area for his unrelenting aggression. After he was released, he made statements that he was going to kick all of the homosexuals out of San Borja Park. Needless to say, he denied Rahul's accusations. His testimony stated that they had come across a drunken Daniel lying on a bench in a park. They had woken him and told him to leave the park. And they all watched him leave.
Oh, let me guess, he made a move on them.
Oh, no, they watched him leave, and then he just fell down some stairs. Okay.
He said that soon afterwards, when Rahul went to get more alcohol, Rahul found Daniel asleep and injured on a zebra crossing and brought him back to the group.
He'd been hit by a car. Right.
Makes sense.
That's how
Patricio said they put him on a bench and left him alone.
Didn't call an ambulance or anything.
We just popped him on a chair, yeah. Let him sleep off his internal injuries.
And his drunkenness. They later saw 2 people approach the bench where Daniel was sleeping. The 2 people tried to rob Daniel, and Patricio, being such a good Samaritan, intervened and scared away the would-be thieves. Then, upstanding citizen that he is, he said he was concerned about Daniel, who was drunk and unaware of what was going on around him. So Patricio woke Daniel up and they began to talk. Daniel was crying and wondering why he was injured. Patricio calmed him down and gave him a beer. Patricio left the park at about 10 p.m. with Alejandro, and they went to Alejandro's girlfriend's house, and he never saw Daniel again. Patricio also claimed that afterwards, when he heard about the attack, he realised that he had seen Daniel, and he called the police twice to offer his assistance with the investigation. What a good bloke.
Asshole.
For a neo-Nazi, he's Yeah.
It's pretty good for a neo-Nazi, eh?
That's what I was saying. As you say that, I'm a neo-Nazi. For me to be able to share this information with you this way, I'm telling you, I'm a really good guy. I'm a good neo-Nazi.
I mean, is there another kind? Alejandro's story, strangely, pretty much matched Patrizio's. Alejandro's girlfriend was questioned about this version of events, and she said that none of it happened. She said they didn't arrive to her house until
Go girl.
nearly dawn. Yeah, right. She's a superhero.
Her.
And that she'd heard them talking about how they had beaten up a kid in the park.
What a load of old shit.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
She also said that Alejandro lied in his statement and backed up Patrizio's story because he was afraid of him.
I can't believe she's been brave enough to do that. Really?
How good is that?
That'd be terrifying.
I'll be fucked.
Yeah.
That not
happen.
while I'm watching. No way.
Family. Good on her.
Yeah.
What a little legend.
So Fabian, the fourth one, initially refused to talk.
I guess you date neo-Nazi. It comes with the territory.
Yeah, true. But eventually he did, and he told police that everything Rahul had said was true. Through all of this, Daniel's family remained by his side, talking to him even though he was in a coma. Eventually he opened his eyes, and soon after that showed signs that he was alert and awake. He could focus on who was talking to him and showed signs that he understood what they said. He occasionally smiled, and his family was overjoyed. And whilst I say that he was occasionally smiling, he was obviously going through a lot. After a few days, as he continued to improve, he was told he had received a message from Ricky Martin, and it made him laugh. Who doesn't love a message from Ricky Martin?
No, right?
Hashtag she bangs.
She bangs.
Hashtag she bangs. Hashtag living the vida loca. Yeah.
Oh, good on Ricky Martin.
Oh, no, it's kind of nice.
More power to him, yeah.
Oh, he was a very good-looking bloke.
I know.
Good old Ricky.
He was. He's in that new show. I can't wait to watch it called The Palm Royale, which is set in
Is
Palm
it a
Beach,
reality TV
and
show?
Kristen Wiig's in it. No. It's a series. It starts like tonight or something. Kristen Wiig, who is Saturday Night Live, who I think is really funny. She's like the lead in it. Looks really good, and he's in it.
I just like his music.
It's like set in the 60s.
Yeah.
Right up there with your Beyonce. It was all that period.
That era, yeah.
Pre-Beyonce.
And what was the message that made him laugh? Do we know what it was?
Oh, I assume it was hashtag she bangs.
You crazy
No, I think
fool.
it was just that what had gone on to him had gotten Ricky Martin's attention and he'd got a message.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Okay.
However, he was in a lot of pain, and he often spent his time awake crying as a result of the pain and trauma. 2 weeks after arriving in hospital, he suffered a heart attack, and whilst it wasn't fatal, he was put back into a coma. His family were advised that he would likely have neurological damage. Soon afterwards, they were informed that he had no brain activity and that he wouldn't survive. After 3 weeks in hospital, Daniel died. And he died because he was gay. Daniel's house was decorated with flowers and white balloons. On the day of the funeral, as his body made the way through the streets, many people held up photos of Daniel and signs asking for the law to be changed. People gathered in a nearby park with musicians playing their instruments on stage and people speaking candidly about how the laws needed to change.
Can I ask a question about the laws needing to change?
Yes.
Surely murdering someone, beating someone to death in a park is illegal in Chile.
Yes.
Regardless of whether or not they're gay. So what change in law would have prevented this from happening? Not to say that it shouldn't happen. I'm interested in what do we think could have prevented this?
Well, so the thing is, and I think we see this all the time, right? There's a group of people who think that something isn't okay and therefore people need to be punished for it. And this is the thing with hate crimes. And there are people who go, there's actually nothing wrong going on here and there's no crime. So it's not so much about the fact that he was murdered, because obviously murder is a crime. It's about the fact that it's not okay to attack people because of their race, gender, sexuality, religion, any of that. You cannot, that's not a reason to do.
But the law didn't say it's okay to attack people.
The law doesn't specifically say it's not. And if you think, if you're coming from, even as soon as probably in Australia, not even 30 years ago, it was illegal to be gay. So, that in itself promotes hate crime because you're committing a crime in being gay. So we actually need laws that state that this stuff is okay and you're the problem if you have a problem with it. And in the absence of that, this is the sort of shit that happens, right? People, and it's, we see it all the time, as we just talked about with, and particularly recently with the anti-Semitic activity and also, what's going on between the Gaza Strip, between the Jews and Palestinians. That is manifesting in Australia, where we have a lot of sort of hate crime stuff going on. It's the motivation for it that is either an excuse for doing what you've done and therefore a reason not to be charged with murder, or it's cut and dry. If you do this stuff, you will be charged with murder. Do you understand?
Yes, but what I don't understand is the part of the point of law. So the example that you cited, which was X period ago, it was illegal to be gay. Okay, so the law changed, right? So the law had to change. So I get that's a point of law that changed. What's the point of law that had to change in Chile around hate crimes? Because surely they didn't have a law that says it's all right to bash up gay people or Jews or whatever. So it would have been, I'm sure, illegal to bash someone to death or cause someone to die as a result of their injuries, regardless of where they come from. I think the point I'm trying to get to is a point of law. No, I know, right? I'm trying to get to, there's a point of law which says what's illegal and what's what have you. These bloody right-wing fascist neo-Nazis see themselves as above the law. So for them, that's the second point that you're making, which is when society says there is nothing to see here, we are not bothered by these things, you're the problem, neo-Nazis, that may change that behaviour. But that's not a point of law. Do you get where I'm coming from?
No. I understand what you're trying to say, but I guess what I would say is that whenever there's a serious crime that happens, legally the defence will try to talk that down, right? And so if the defence can say that, no one's okay with
it's
gay
okay because he was gay,
and they were provoked and therefore it's less than, therefore you shouldn't give him a maximum sentence.
They were provoked by this man's existence.
By the fact he was gay, right? That's the issue. And so once you go cut and dry, that can no longer be used as a defence, then you're on your own. You make that decision, you do that out of hate, and that's on you.
So you can't use that as a defence is the change of the law. Okay, cool.
I think that's what it is, right? So, you can't go and say that in the wake of the Christchurch attacks, we go and attack Muslims because they're the problem. Anyone who does that is the problem. That's the important bit. So, meanwhile, Daniel's attackers had their charges upgraded from attempted murder to first-degree murder, which was motivated by hate. And the response to Daniel's death from the public was huge. So, as I said, there were flowers, balloons, crowds of people supporting. His funeral was attended by thousands. I guess it's a point in time where the public view is changing and somebody's still hanging on to something that may have been acceptable 5 years earlier, 10 years earlier, whatever, is now regarded as the issue. So Daniel and being gay in Chile might have been a problem 10 years earlier, I don't know. But at that point, it was okay to be gay, but for some people who were the problem. And so the public really became quite vocal about their support for Daniel and for other gay people. So Daniel's parents publicly stated that it was not the first time he had been targeted because of his sexual orientation and that his attackers were neo-Nazis. The very next day, the Chilean president expressed his sorrow to the family, even though he was officially travelling in Asia. He reported it as a brutal and cowardly attack on Chile's people. However, at the funeral, the Interior Minister, Rodrigo Hinz-Peter, was booed and heckled when he came to share his condolences with the crowds gathered outside the hospital where Mr. Zamudio died. So there was this real thing, I guess, between where the people needed change and had relied on the government to deliver that. However, due to the church's involvement, things had stagnated. And so I think it was a real turning point for Chile. And so when we were in Chile, in Santiago, we went to Valparaiso to see the artwork. And when we came back to a riot, literally with, rocks being thrown at police, tear gas, the whole thing. And it's an annual thing that has happened ever since 2018, where there was a social uprising because people lost faith, I guess, in the government and were really trying to push for social change. And through that process,
I predict a riot. It happens every year. It's annual.
I was going to say it's an annual thing.
What's the date? I predict a riot.
What was surprising was that churches were actually attacked. So over the course of the probably 5 years that we, since we were there or before we were there, churches were derelict. They were boarded up, beautiful buildings. It's something I've never seen anywhere where the public have attacked churches and gone, there's actually almost a hatred towards churches. And I don't know it, but I can't help but think back to this where they've gone, well, you lot are out of touch. This is something that is socially important. And because of your paranoia, we can't be ourselves. We can't live safely. And that's me putting my spin on it. I fully understand that may not be the case, but it makes sense to me that would be.
It is interesting because Pope Francis is actually very pro-lesbian and gay. And I'm sure he's extremely unpopular. No, for a pope, right? So, I mean, it wouldn't be an easy job to say, here I'm the head of a church that has been anti all of these things for 2,000 years, and he's, as the head of the church, as the guiding light saying, gays and lesbians, it's not a crime, cut it out, and God is all about...
Cut it out.
The
church and God is all about, he's the father and he loves all of his children equally, and you shouldn't be making people feel like they can't be part of this. The issue is not the church. The issue is the people in the church, which is all good and well, Pope. But, you're new on the scene in terms of what you're saying, comparative to every other Pope who's towed the line and just said, no, I'm not addressing this. But I think the thing about him that I find interesting is he seems to be slightly more in touch with where society is going. And, honestly, Catholicism and the far Christianity stuff, it is losing touch with reality. It is moving in a direction that's miles away from, what the rest of the world is doing. So I think from his perspective, he is more progressive than any church leader I've seen in years. They'll probably knock him off at some point, unfortunately. You rarely hear it because you certainly didn't hear it from the German bloke before and the other one, you never heard it from any of them. But he's definitely taken the position to say everyone has a right to be part of the church if they want to be. And God doesn't have these issues with people. He loves his children. And it's not a crime to be homosexual or gay.
Yeah, and I've heard that, and I think, good on him. But I guess to your point around hate crimes and why is it important, you need people in those positions to come out and say, if you have a problem with these people, you're the problem. Cut it out. Right, yeah. But so no longer do we say our Pope says it's okay.
Cut it out.
Yeah, correct.
No.
Yeah, cut it out.
Pope basically said, if the people are the problem here, cut it out, you lot.
And we popped into his church, by the way, in Argentina.
The one he came from in Buenos Aires.
Oh, he's the original
one. So he's actually a very progressive Pope. I agree with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We loved it.
Yes.
Yeah, but, his views will not be replicated by the hard Christian US group. They're miles away from what the Catholic Church is thinking now. They're total
getting
splitters.
Further away.
They're a whole other kettle of fish. So when you talk about the church, there's a lot of churches you're talking about here.
I agree. And I would say his views are not even the same as the Catholic churches. He's the leader and he has a view.
As the head of the Catholic Church,
it doesn't mean that everyone
he basically tells us what to think. No, but
not true. It's like saying...
It is true.
It's like saying if our Prime Minister comes out and says this is what we think, half of our country would say... Well, it is. It is.
Like that all. No, it's not, because the Prime Minister is not ordained by God. The Pope is. Anyway.
Well, I mean, who even is God?
Ask the Pope, he'll tell you.
Yes, the American Christians would say he doesn't even have a phone to God.
There's my point.
Well, there's my point too. Yeah. It's all completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
God or the devil?
It's all made up. The Interior Minister promised that the government would work hard to pass the anti-discrimination laws. He said, since this aggression, Daniel's murder has happened, we have had a relative education on how we are going to construct a more harmonious society with more love, where no one is discriminated against for any reason, because all Chileans have the same rights. There is no one in our society who can feel such murderous arrogance that they can attack and assault a fellow citizen for any reason, he said.
Murderous arrogance.
I know, it's a good phrase. I like it. Jamie Parada, spokesman for Chile's leading gay rights group, the Movement for Homosexual Liberation and Integration,
It's a catchier
said
title.
the case highlighted how gay men and women in Chile lived in fear. It does,
Gayers.
doesn't it? God. Gay people aren't very good at catchy titles.
Jesus,
you should be much better at it.
Oh, I know, right? So many skills. That's not one. We need to outsource that. He said, we are fighting for an anti-discrimination law for changes in language so people stop treating us like we are ill and make sure that church does not treat us like sinners and so on. So, to the murder trial. The 4 men were arrested and they were sent to trial. The court heard that Daniel's 4 assailants, as I said, carved swastikas on his skin, branded him with cigarettes and smashed his right leg with an 18-pound or 8-kilogram rock. According to graphic court testimony released earlier in the month, they then urinated on his body. Following Daniel's death, prosecutor Ernesto Vasquez requested that the charges be changed to premeditated murder. He said the assault had been clearly motivated by homophobia. And I love that. I love that he's gone, well, in the absence of hate
That's
laws.
true. The first thing they asked was, are you gay?
Premeditated murder.
Yeah.
They were looking for a gay man to attack.
They weren't necessarily looking to murder him, but I love that he's gone, all bets are off.
I'm not sure about
You've
that.
done this. Well, they didn't murder him until 3 weeks later, right? So they didn't make sure he was dead and then leave, I guess is what I'm saying. In their defense, which I shouldn't even be talking about, but I am.
Look at you balanced reporter.
Oh, don't, because if I don't do that, I'll fall off a cliff and it'll become horrendous. So Patricio was accused of being the ringleader of the attack on Daniel and sentenced to life in prison by the judges. The 3 other men involved with the murder were given lesser sentences. Alejandro and Raul were both given 15 years in prison for their part in the murder, and Fabian was given only 7 years in jail. Members of Daniel Zamudio's family applauded as the sentences were read, and Patricio stared defiantly at the Zamudio family as the sentences were read. Before being escorted out of the courtroom by police, he shouted at the judges, saying they were putting an innocent man in jail. Rolando Jimenez, the president of the Gay Liberation and Integration Movement, also needs some work. As an acronym, that's GLIM. I don't think that's good either.
No.
Told the Associated Press he was not happy with the outcome and believed all 4 men should have been given life sentences. This leaves a bitter taste in my mouth because they deserve much stiffer sentences. Unfortunately, Chile's legislation doesn't allow it. We're tired of fighting to end the brutal attacks on people because of their sexual orientation. Daniel's mother also agreed that her son's killers deserved harsher sentences. Outside the courtroom, Jacqueline told reporters the 4 of them should have gotten life in prison because they were all part of the beating of Daniel. I just want them to rot in prison for what they did. Let them dry up behind bars. Hate crimes against gay men and women is a common occurrence in Chile. Just 1 week ago, a 21-year-old gay man was beaten up in a town south of Santiago. And I did do some research on some of the other hate crimes at the time, and they were all similar and foul, but I won't go into them. So on the 17th of October 2013, all 4 men were found guilty of first-degree murder. Judge Juan Carlos Urrutia declared that they were all guilty of a crime of extreme cruelty and total disrespect for human life. After the preliminary hearing, Patricio went on a hunger strike, but he wasn't. There was no reprieve for him. I wish he had gone on a hunger strike till he offed himself, but that's another story. So just some final words from people who are very good at saying what they say, because I struggle with this. I get quite angry about it. So from Daniel's father, it is typical of us Chileans that an accident has to happen for us to approve a law. My son will not come back, but this case may end up being good for Chile. Rolando Jimenez, president of president of GLIM, said, "We're satisfied with this ruling. There's a before and an after the Zamudio case. It generated such outrage because of the brutality, the hate, that it helped raise awareness," he said. "We've witnessed a cultural change that finally led to an anti-discrimination law." And before we finish, my secret source, I'd like to say a big thank you to Patrick at Queer Crime Podcast for his excellent telling of the story of Daniel. And that, my friends, is the story.
Thank you for bringing that story. It was very emotional. It's hard to hear that crime. It's disgusting.
It was hard for me to research it. It was.
I don't doubt it.
Really hard to hear.
I don't doubt it.
And we have similar stories in Australia, and we have similar, there's stories from the US. These stories are not uncommon.
Correct.
We just don't talk about them a lot. So, yeah.
I feel like some of them, it's nearly like I would have expected to hear a story like this maybe, or more so, say 20 years ago. But that's not to say it's still not happening.
Correct.
That's what is really troubling, because people think, oh, it's not as bad as it was. And probably it's not, but it's, it's still really...
There are still redneck pricks out there.
Oh, hell yeah.
Who do stupid shit because they've got 3 brain cells, have ridiculous attitudes and think they're above the law, or just, I don't even know what they think, full stop. It's like Neanderthals walk amongst us.
That's why I think it's really hard to punish them. I don't know.
We say that in Western culture, but there are plenty of cultures where it's actually accepted that gay people need to be punished. And, you go to Saudi Arabia or any of the Middle Eastern countries and, you can be quite openly murdered for being gay because you're the problem.
You can be openly murdered for being a woman to doing the wrong thing. They just openly murder people. Yeah.
Well, no, but that's the importance of the hate crime, right? So it makes it very clear to everyone else that no longer, regardless of what's been okay in the past, that is no longer okay. And you need that change in speech and in the way people think to stop that from happening. Otherwise, everyone goes, oh, well, I guess that's okay. That's just the way we do things around here.
I find it really hard to sort of work out how I would punish these guys, because the reality is if their motivation is hate, they hate gay people.
Probably a lot of people.
So much. It's so indoctrinated. It's so, do you know what I mean? You can't, then they can't be taught. I don't think you can, I don't know how you resolve that.
No.
I don't know how you show them another way. And I know that you would say, theoretically it would be love. You need to show them what love can do. But it literally is, the only thing that I could think of is if their own family, their own loved ones, their own people in their own circle, whatever else, knew what it was to feel like that fear of not being able to walk through a park, just because of who you are, whatever it is. That's just one example. But I can't imagine that they know that fear that comes with that, and having to worry about whether their mother, their father, their son, their daughter, whoever it is, their little brother, something's going to happen to them. That's the only way I think that you could even potentially start to communicate with these people, because they're there to hurt, they're there to harm. That's their whole modus operandi, is literally to wipe out people who are gay or whatever it is that they don't like.
Yeah, but do you not think that? Why do they pick on any particular group? And I think it's just fear. They're probably
not scared of gay people. I don't believe that.
Well,
no, they're scared of gay
neo-Nazis. So he was anti-gay and he was anti-ethnicity. It was both.
Why is he anti all those things? So who's preaching that? Who's telling them to be anti those things?
He wasn't scared of being Chinese, because that was never going to happen.
He doesn't like foreigners,
so it's not.
Yeah, no, but foreigners steal our jobs.
That's true.
Foreigners don't belong here. They take our land. They take our houses. They take our partners. They take our jobs.
Yes.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I don't think he was scared of being gay. I think he just needed to hate.
Anyway, I'm going to sentence them before they commit this crime, because clearly they are ignorant and they haven't experienced. They probably don't even know any gay people, right? They just go, I hate this thing over there that I'm now dehumanizing, and therefore I can go and do these terrible things. So I'm going to pick them up and put them. Yeah, I'm going to pick them up and put them in RuPaul's freaking Drag Race, where they have to live the life of a drag queen, and they have to, I don't know what their crafting is like. They probably won't get points for making a nice frock, but they certainly have to drag up and they have to live with a whole bunch of people who they get to then realise are people. because I think the issue here is also I hate something I don't understand, and I hate something I'm frightened of, and I'm certainly not going to go into a community and try and understand it. I'm going to attack it and try and kill it. Same with the foreigner bit, right? So for me, I think as a preventative action, apart from changing the law about these things, maybe all these neo-Nazis need to be in RuPaul's Drag Race. And I read this thing, and God knows if it was true. You know, with Facebook, sometimes you think, is what I'm reading actually real, or someone's just made this shit up? But it was a story about a man, black man, who went out of his way to befriend members of the Ku Klux Klan. And he'd done it for years and years and years at great risk to himself. But he'd actually turned at least, I think it was something like 60 people away from the Klan because they learned that he was a person, and he built friendships with people. And I think it's not just a case of saying change the law that, you know, to say you can't be nasty to the people. Understand what is driving the fear and break down the barriers between communities and cultures so that there's less of this fear-mongering. That is at the heart, and the media has a massive role to play in that. That's at the heart really of all of this hate business, is a complete lack of understanding. Anyway, RuPaul's Drag Race.
True.
And as an extra punishment, I'm going to put them in high heels that are 2 sizes too small. There's a punishment for you.
One side would be too small.
I have got a blister on the sole of my foot.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Mucking around in heels I haven't worn for ages, so there's a bloody punishment.
There's a hate crime.
And unusual
you and your billionaires hanging around with your heels on.
Yeah,
you and the high.
Yeah, that's right.
Cruel and unusual torture. There you go. Right. What about you guys?
I struggle with these sorts of things because obviously for me it's a fairly personal case.
Frontal lobotomy.
Is it why?
Schmitty, what you're... Yeah, I know, right?
What do you mean?
Schmitty, what you're saying about old mate Gillespie who befriended people in the Ku Klux Klan, like I've spent most of my working life, correct,
befriending people in the Ku Klux Klan.
I spent most of befriending people who are homophobic. So
didn't understand it.
You know,
that's right.
like that's well,
that's why we became
people who are homophobic, whether they understood it or not, right? I've been fairly vocal in the steel industry. I've had plenty of people treat me terribly, but I do it because I think it's important, right? And I've always thought that I'm a good person and people will see that and they will get past the things that they think. I don't think it's based out of hatred often. I think there's some people who hate it. And I think there are plenty of people who just think that's just what happens around here, right? So, if you're going to do it, it's like bullying. You get one kid being a bully in the playground and plenty of other people just join in because they go, oh, well,
yes,
that's all right.
Yep.
They also join in because they don't want to be bullied next themselves.
Maybe. Yeah, there's a whole lot of – that's a very complex space. What I'm saying is that there are plenty of people there who, apart from the bully, wouldn't do it. But the bully does it and therefore they're in there and they go, well, all right, while we're doing this, let's all do it because now it's kind of cool to do that, whether they think that way or not, which is why the hate crime bit to me is important. It's important to say, no, if you're with the bully, you're part of the problem. You wouldn't think like that normally.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
So,
just
let's be very clear on that. So Patrizio for me is the lowest, zero respect for him. The other three probably, I think,
he should be on the ground and stood on.
Wouldn't have done it but for him. I think he should be the race course that they run around.
Yeah, okay.
The bit that gets me, and at the risk of starting a religious debate, this goes to my hatred of the church. You know, that whole thing of we are holier than thou, and 100%. Yet I haven't committed any crimes yet. That whole thing of we are the light, we are the way. We don't like that. You're the problem. You know, you can't pass laws against that because we don't like it. That's the shit. That hypocrisy I cannot stand. And so the church for me, I mean, they could be part of the race course that Drag Race run around too. I have an absolute aversion to them. And it's unfortunate because I think what you say about Pope Francis is absolutely true, but they've got a long way to come back from.
He's just one man.
Anyway, I think Patrizio, shit bloke, also church shitbloke. Like follow the yellow brick road, but follow the Patrizio/church brick road for drag race. So they'll just run across all of them in their high stilettos and
puncture wounds.
Puncture wounds.
I want the pencil heel one.
Yeah, I want the proper. They could even be spiked heels, as far as I'm concerned.
At least in this situation, the police actually arrested them and tried to.
Thank God.
And
that's where I thought we were going to go. When you were saying that no one
in this country, take homosexual or gay out of it and put Indigenous in there, and the case doesn't even come to court.
But I didn't want it to be about how bad Chile is, because I didn't feel that, and honestly, when we were there, I didn't feel that there was any kind of homophobia.
Did you know about this crime when you were there? Is that where you heard about it?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh no. Since recently.
And we didn't feel we could openly hold hands in Chile. There was no issue, so I didn't feel any of that. But it's cases like this that have brought the change about. So snaps to the people of Chile. What was that?
We did come back into all right, but that wasn't.
Well, that wasn't
about you two.
That was pre-planned. That was their annual riot. So you don't even.
That's where
they.
Don't read too much into that. That's their annual riot.
Yeah. Not about
That's
you.
where they burn churches.
Honestly,
I'm okay with that.
That's just you getting your dates. Conflict.
Well, thank you for that. That was sad and awful. And
it really was.
I was holding out hope for a bit there that he recovered, and then you were like, and he died. I was like, oh, God.
Yeah.
I suppose comedy and true crime, mostly true crime.
Bless you, darling. He's the little angel now. The little gay angel.
Right.
Looking out over.
Theatrical.
The little gangel.
Gangel.
All right. Well, again, Clarky, thanks for that.
Yep.
And as we say every week, miss you already.
Ciao.
Miss you already.
Ciao, my lovelies.
Ciao, lovelies.
Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com. Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.